Hey, this is Hove, and you're listening to... do we not have to do that? Do I not have to record that? I thought maybe I was like the guest this week.
Hey everyone, and welcome to REZOcast episode 61. This is Lego, and I've got with me Hove and Triton, and this week we do not have a guest because it's the holidays here in the US and everybody's celebrating Thanksgiving. And so since we're in the middle of the holidays, we still wanted, we didn't want to just not meet in the middle of having this live stream and all this other stuff going on with Bungie and all the, with Reddit on fire and everything. We at least wanted to give you something to listen to on your drive back from the holidays. So guys, how was your week? Hove, Triton, what's going on?
Today was the worst day ever.
Ooh.
No, not really. I just work in technically retail, so I sell booze. So the day before Thanksgiving is kind of like spending 8 hours in hell, like with Satan himself, but like every customer is Satan. So like a lot of Satans.
That sounds worse than Reddit. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, no, I'd rather be on Reddit. I actually sneak away to read Reddit and Destiny things at work, and it's bad when that's the case. But
oh my god.
No, other than that, pretty typical stuff. Like you said, got Thanksgiving tomorrow. Gonna do lots of eating and gain a few pounds probably, and then never lose them again. That about sums it up for me.
Okay, well, it's kind of hard to go any lower than that. My week's been pretty solid. Started getting into the Iron Banner yesterday, so have been done 2 days of that. Trying to get that Warlock set before Season 1 ends, so still playing the Destiny 2 on PS4. Kind of back and forth on whether or not I'm going to do the PC. I've been looking into it a lot this week, so I'm thinking about it, but not fully committed yet. So it's been
Listen, you get the PC, playing. I'll buy you Destiny 2.
Ooh,
I get the PC. Oh,
offers on the table.
Well, and PUBG.
Ho's gonna buy my dinner tonight, so there's that.
If you come to the Eaton Park by my house.
No, that one's the worst.
Well, okay. I'm curious, Triton. I want to ask you some questions about that because I haven't got to play being traveling and with the family. I'm actually at the in-laws' house right now, and I wanted to, my week's just been kind of catching up on all the news basically about Destiny with the live streams and everything, and I'm sure my opinions are probably pretty different than a lot of the internet's right now, so I really want to jump into that. But first, before we do, Triton, how are you feeling about jumping into Iron Banner again and the way all of that's feeling? Getting your character in there, getting all your stuff, mainly the Clarion Call. I was wondering if you noticed any XP boosts from, doing all this stuff, if you've been getting any extra bright engrams or anything like that.
Real quick, before we get off the how our week's thing was, I'm curious, Lego. How did it go? How do the in-laws feel about this? Hey guys, happy holidays. I'm going to go in this room and talk to these guys on the internet for an hour.
It's difficult to explain, to people what is happening, but they're cool with it. Yeah, it's the main thing is my wife sleeping in the next room, which, trying to not stay up all night, talking while she's trying to go to sleep. But other than that, it's fair. Good.
Also, Ho's week must have been a little shitty, because for those of you who can't watch right now, he has, the wispiest stash that I've ever seen in, 61 episodes, and not ever seen him have a wispy stash like this.
My any facial hair I have, it grows very long, but they're so few and far between. I look like some sort of, homeless derelict.
This is podcast gold right now.
Yeah, no, this is my problem though. I can't there's a space in between. There's people like Fallout who can't grow the beard, and there's people like me who there's spaces where it just doesn't grow at all.
I got some space right here, but I also have lots of tiny little spaces all over my face.
What are you talking about? You
what? I'm
perfectly kept right now. You just came from a dinner.
But if I didn't, that's the point.
I was the inspiration for the character creation in Destiny. That's why there's no facial hair, because they were did you see that? Yeah, no. Also, I'm just curious, as I'm doing all this thing pointing at my face, is the video actually going to be on YouTube? Are people watching me do this right now?
No, people are going to get to see him do this now? Good. Okay, we're all going to miss out on this.
Don't worry, folks. But anyway, Triton.
Oh, so Iron Banner. It's been pretty cool. I think I'm at 13 packages for the Warlock, and only have gotten 3 of the 5 armor pieces, including the the class armor. So a little disappointed there. It took me 15 only to get all the hunter ones. I've gotten 3 or 4 bonds now in this Iron Banner, so that's little discouraging. But it's been okay. I've enjoyed myself. Got to play with a couple friends who I don't normally get to play with during the day because I did stream earlier. So it's been pretty fun. Hove popped in for a little bit. And yeah, I think I do enjoy Iron Banner just in general. It always gives me a chance to play with friends. So it's felt a little bit different than the first one. I think just because it's Clash and not Control, and maybe not as many people. I think like on the variance of people you're running into, like I'm running into a lot more 4 stacks, which is fine. I mean, people should be playing with people, but
yeah,
it just seems like maybe there's less people. I don't want to go down that path, but I played like a lot of same people 2 or 3 times in a row sometimes. But it's still fun. I'm still enjoying getting the loot when it happens, and yeah.
I enjoyed watching you get killed by a rocket like 3 times in a row. That was not a good game.
Well, have you noticed any XP boosts? Have you noticed like the Clarion Call thing affecting you at all?
Is the Clarion Call active last week? Because I don't see it any long as a milestone anymore.
Okay, it should have been.
It was just a weekend thing.
Yeah, I don't think it went into the week, Leo.
Oh, I thought it was 7 days. Okay, my bad. I didn't know.
No, they made it sound like it was gonna be like the last 2 weeks or the last week.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if something changed or if it was just bad verbiage.
I see. Yeah, some people thought it was going to be 2 weeks whenever it first came out.
They definitely said something about 2 weeks. 100% for sure. They said 2 weeks in the description of it, but I don't know if it was sometime during this 2 weeks.
You're like 2 weekends in 2 weeks kind of thing.
Yeah,
maybe.
I don't remember enough to give you a definitive answer, but it definitely said something about 2 weeks, and then when they finally announced it, it was just a weekend. It was like a double XP weekend.
It was a lot of confusion surrounding it. But yeah, I'm excited to jump in on PC just to get the shaders, basically, because I don't have, everybody who PC hasn't gotten to play Iron Banner at all yet. And so those are like, I really like the shaders for Iron Banner, particularly the one that had less green in it. And it's just all like the silver and
the
gold looking one.
I think that's the Iron Wolf one. That's the one I like the most.
Dude, that one looks so good. And so I'm excited to get that one for PC for a little bit, just having the chance to do this and jump in there with the PC crowd, even though it is, not Control this time around. It's just Clash. I'm still excited to do it. I had a lot of fun last time, so I'm excited to jump back in.
I was never too upset with Clash. I mean,
yeah, that's fine.
I do prefer Control, I think, but I don't think Clash was too bad.
Yeah.
And even now, I mean, with the changes to Supremacy, I don't even think I'm going to mind Supremacy because,
that's true.
To be completely honest, it's Clash where you have the chance to get a second point by picking up the crest.
Make it go faster.
So,
yeah. I agree with you. I'm all in for it. So, now that we have that aside, we got the Curse of Osiris Livestream number 2, aka the 2 tokens in a blue stream, which we will get into that. But I had to just get that out of the way because everybody, that's what literally every comment under any Bungie thing right now, that's what you will see. But what were you guys' takeaways on it? There was a lot of stuff here. To some people, there wasn't a lot of anything. But to me, like, I felt like I'll just go ahead and start with my general just takeaway from the whole thing, and then I want to hear what you guys think of everything. I read the Reddit post about it first, so I wasn't able to watch it right away, and then I went back and watched the whole thing, and I was pleasantly surprised about how fun everything looked, how great all the weapons looked, and the way the new event was. It looked really fun. It looked like it could become one of my favorite public events to happen yet. There was a lot of like using the basically the jump points to go around to these different parts of the map and then dunking a rift after you killed gate lords and stuff like that. And I don't know, it just looked like a lot of movement and a lot of fun. And if you had a lot of people in the event at the same time, it might be really fun. And then other than that, the Infinite Force looked awesome. The Weapon Forge thing was a little disappointing, but that was the only part that I was really at all disappointed at, and I wasn't expecting anything from it to begin with. The main thing is like verbiage, we'll get into that, I'm sure, but this is just my general takeaway from everything. Overall, the one thing that stuck out to me the most was everything just looked really amazing. Like, all the Vex stuff looked incredible, all the weapons, everything on Mercury. The Infinite Force looked really cool, and the gate to Infinite Force is probably the coolest Destiny art I've ever seen in any part of the game ever. Like, it looks so freaking cool. It looks like I can't even. It looks like in like Star Trek or Star Wars whenever they go into hyperspace or warp speed or what, any kind of sci-fi thing like that. It looks like that when you're going, but except you're walking into it. Like, it looks so sci-fi and so awesome.
So it's plaid?
Plaid?
No one gets that reference?
No.
Oh, you guys are the worst. You've never seen Spaceballs?
Oh, yeah.
Dear God, they've gone plaid!
Yes, it is.
Come on, man. That's like the best movie of all time.
But no, for real, the art direction looks incredible. And I just want to, I feel like that just gets completely bypassed by a few things that people were expecting and didn't get. And I feel like they revealed a lot in the last live stream, and in this one they went into some of the details on how the Infinite Forest work in the public event, and that was kind of it. I wasn't expecting a lot. I'm excited for next week, and that's kind of where I'm at with everything.
Well, they also talked about what Heroic Adventures, is that what it was?
Yeah, Heroic Adventures, basically, and some of those adventures will happen in the Infinite Forest and some of the things like that. But yeah, I mean, wasn't much more than that.
Yeah, no, like you said, as cool as something like, the gate, the artwork, that kind of stuff was, I do get, you said it got bypassed for people being kind of upset about there not being a whole lot of other stuff. And I mean, I feel like that's natural. I mean, with the state that everything, that the community's in because of the state of the game, people aren't going to go, man, it needs all these fixes and none of them, and we know they weren't coming now, and none of these fixes are here, but that gate looks really cool. Like, the majority of people aren't going to look at that. Now, if this was like, we were really excited and this was just, more pieces to a really great current situation with better endgame and yet, then people start noticing that stuff. But, it's just one of those things where you're not going to point out the good small things if you're upset about worse big things. Does that make sense? I just made that up. I don't even know what that means.
I get what you're saying, and I think that is a larger conversation that we'll probably land on tonight, is the DLC versus live team kind of stuff, and like what they can actually change, what is planned for this DLC. Like, I think that's something you and I have talked about before, is like, this DLC was probably worked on a long time ago before they knew all these changes were coming. And also, on top of all of that, we haven't seen anything that the live team is bringing for Season 2 yet, other than some gear they showed off at the TwitchCon live stream. I think that was the only... And they said changes that are coming to Iron Banner and stuff like that, but that's about it. We don't know any of the other changes. And so that was the last thing, I guess. The last kind of topic is like the next week thing. And we're going to have a gear guy come off and show some gear. And then they've got John Wisniewski coming on to, obviously, if he's on, they didn't say it, but he's going to talk about the sandbox. There's no way. They just said he's going to talk about some gear, some weapons. But I mean, he's got to talk about the sandbox if they have John on, I would think.
Yeah, is that like his thing?
Yes, exactly. And so it's like, well, that's the one piece of, these live streams that I've been waiting to hear, is what changes are coming to the sandbox and to the Crucible. And so I think he's going to bring a lot of those answers.
Yeah, I mean, you'd think so. It may not be specifically PvP related, but, any sort of gameplay changes, sandbox changes are going to affect both, PvE and PvP. So,
yeah.
We'll see about that. But I mean, as far as the reveal itself, like, I do think what was there was cool. Like, I think the public event looks really neat. It almost just kind of looks like a mission or like a raid encounter type, like small. You know what I mean?
It does. Yes, it looks like a very small raid encounter.
Yeah.
Almost.
And, so I think that's really cool. And I think the Infinite Forest looks cool, even though there's no trees. I don't know. I just think like Heroic Adventures just kind of seem like a really, really, really badly placed Band-Aid to me.
But yeah, I mean, to me, it was just an extra thing. It isn't to replace anything. It's just an extra thing.
No, but I
there.
mean, like, one of the things that's been asked for is like the Heroic Strike playlist back, and then they're like, "Oh, here's Heroic Adventures." Like, I don't know whether it.
Well, no, they did say
Yeah,
heroic
we're getting
strikes
heroic
are
strikes back.
Oh,
coming back. That was on the last stream.
really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why Deej even makes a joke about it in this live stream. He's like, "Good thing we announced heroic strikes first before we showed you this." So we've got heroic strikes coming back, and now we've got heroic missions coming back. Yeah.
But you guys lying to me?
No, I'm not making this
And
up.
I'd love
It's
to lie
for
to
real
you
in
too,
the
but
game.
I'm not going to.
I love the way you lie,
Liar of lies.
Rihanna.
Yes.
Eminem. I'm Eminem. You're definitely Rihanna.
Triton, what did you think about the whole thing?
Well, kind of staying with some of the positives that I really liked. I think when the Infinite Forest, and a lot of people were wondering, like, well, it changes every time, and how's that going to work? I'm interested to see how that kind of plays out. I think, we talk about being able to do something, to keep you in the game. We'll see how that plays out in terms of if it keeps giving people incentive to do. I think it's going to be tied more to how the loot is for that, more than the fact that like the encounter changes. So hopefully that's kind of something they're understanding is like, it's more of like what we're going to get at the end of it. We don't even mind if it's the same freaking thing. But the fact that it can change and there might be different kind of mods, or the area could be different, the layout could be different. I think that's definitely interesting. We speculated a little bit about the raid and kind of like what the raid activity would be like, and Hove talked about like how big the Leviathan is, and we're only on a very small part of it. And then I think we did go down the rabbit hole of like that branching out to be ultimately a much bigger raid, or you kind of go to a different part of the Leviathan. It looks like that's what it's going to be, so that's cool too, in my opinion. So those are the things that I definitely did like. I think some of the seasonal announcements they made, like that's when we're going to get that big kind of tweak right in the beginning of every season. We're supposed to get like 4 in a year of Destiny, so kind of establishing that I think was important as well. But to Ho's point, I think kind of where they need to go and what they need to address, like if we had like one of those reverse telethon things, like those thermometers that like measure like how close you are to a goal, I feel like if we filled that up with like the goodwill that Bungie has, it would be going like the other way. So I think that at some point they need to kind of tackle some of these things a little bit head on. We've probably said verbiage like 6 times already on this podcast, so I think at some point something needs to change a little bit. But I tried to look for the things that I was going to look forward to and be positive about it, and not so much what was missing or what I wanted to hear.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about, the verbiage, and I think the main thing that everybody was looking for and didn't get was loot changes and in-game changes. And so I think it felt like, and that is what I will say was a negative of the stream for me, was the verbiage. And it felt kind of scripted, like pre-scripted, to a point where it like went in a direction that wasn't good. Like Deej knew he had to say, "This is the most rewarding public event we've ever had," and then when he pops the chest, because there's 2 of them, he just gets 2 tokens and a blue. And it was just like, everybody's like, "Really, tokens?" Like, that is a problem with the game right now. And so chat just blew up in stream, and it just
I couldn't even imagine.
Yeah, things just went crazy. And then it happened again at the end of the adventure that they did, and they got 2 tokens and a blue, and everyone's like, 2 tokens, and that's like the new in game is 2 tokens and a blue. And like everyone was hoping for something more interesting, and so that kind of that happened towards the beginning of the stream, was the public event, and then it just kind of went downhill from then. And since I went in, I think, predisposed to that via Reddit, I was able to see the stream without having that, just completely smokescreen everything else. But I could see how everybody else would watch it and be like, "Oh my gosh." And it's just, you want to play it for yourself. It's not fun to just sit back and watch somebody. I mean, for the content that they showed anyway, it's stuff that you would want to play yourself. And so you've got that part of the loot thing. And then you've also got the part of the loot thing with the Weapon Forge, or Prophecy verses, as they called them, the verses that you basically pick up to complete your weapon forging and get your Vex weapons, which they shot themselves in the foot, I feel like, by using the word forge, because you're not like building something, you're just going and getting these things. And so that was another problem, I think.
It was the same as when we forged the Iron Galahorn. Right?
Yes, it was the same as that. And so I kind of expected that because of that reason. I think you might have even mentioned it on last week's episode. You said, like, well, maybe it'll just be like forging the Galahorn, or maybe it was, I don't know.
Probably did, because I'm like really smart.
But
Just
yeah,
kidding.
so those were the two.
I can't believe
negatives
no one
for
gave me
me.
shit. No one called me out on that.
Well, everybody just knows, that you're just that way, so we just let it be.
Just that way.
All right. Serious question I want to ask you guys. Obviously, especially when you say flat out, this is the most rewarding public event we've ever had, and you get literally the exact same thing that you get from every other public event. Obviously, that was a shitty coincidence or shitty design or whatever it may have been. It was a shitty situation. But
well, here's the thing. I just got to point out, they said at the beginning that because they couldn't time a public event, they pre-recorded this. So they knew this is what, and that's the part that really gets me. I'm like, you set yourself up. Like, why would you do that?
Yeah.
And maybe Deej himself didn't see this footage, and that's probably what happened. But it just that sucks.
Okay, well, regardless of the reasoning behind it, my question to you guys is, especially with the way the loot system is now, and we've complained, tokens are, whatever. And how you can get everything from everywhere, and there's no hey, I need to go do this to get this. What could they even give you in a public event that would make it more worthwhile than anything else? Like, what would make it what could they put in the loot pool that would make you excited?
They could make it like what was the forge in the last expansion for Destiny?
Archon's Forge.
Do what?
Archon's Forge?
Yeah, Archon's Forge. You went in and you had specific loot to get from that place.
Right. But
so
I'm saying
if you
as
gave
far
that
as,
public event.
I'm saying as far as the loot system is now, because we don't have any specific, there was specific loot all over the place in Destiny 1. In this thing, without changing the way loot works, across the game, what could they even really do to make it any more
completely agree.
Rewarding?
Yeah.
You
can't.
And that's not like a, hey guys, hey community, chill out. There's nothing they can do. That's like they've backed themselves in a corner. Like, how do you make it more rewarding?
Well, I don't think if they're not going to change that, like if the Osiris and the DLC doesn't kind of bring about some locked gear and they haven't, or specific gear to activities and they haven't said anything like that, that would be the case. Maybe could you increase if smart loot is any part of the game in some fashion, could you tune that up way higher? That would matter to me. Getting the 2 or 3 exotics I don't have within the system. Would it knock my socks off? Would I be like, oh man, I'm going to keep playing this event forever? And maybe in some ways, if you get the 3 or 4 things that you didn't have, maybe you're done with that event. But within the framework of what we have right now, I would probably do it if I thought there was a greater chance of getting the 3 or 4 exotics I was missing or something like that.
See, now my problem with that, like you said, the exotics, to maybe get the rest of the exotics or whatever, you may be looking for. I get that. But if they're tuning it up to specifically go after those things you don't have, how long is that going to last you too?
Well, I guess I probably wouldn't be an inclination to do that after 4 or 5 times, but right. I probably won't do it 3 times, I guess, without it. But if I get a blue and whatever. On
the flip side, I think that would almost highlight the issue even more, because it would again go, well, what the hell should I do the rest of this stuff for when I have such a good chance of getting these highlight exotic weapons in just public events? That's one of the issues we've talked about, is there's no reason to do certain things because you can just go run public events forever. And if you raise something like an exotic chance from public events, that just highlights that problem even more. Why do anything else?
Well, it could be legendaries too. It could be anything that I guess you're missing. I see what your point is that you'll stay doing just that as opposed to doing the other things.
Yeah.
But your question was also within the framework of what we have. So what we have, we don't like this system. So you're saying what can you do, not changing anything else systemically that would make me want to do it? Well, the answer is probably nothing.
Well,
I'm giving you the one answer within.
Yeah. No, I don't think I was specifically going.
He's giving
for this when
question.
I started the questions. I was honestly thinking about it, but as I listened to answers and thought about it more, like I said, I think all this does is highlight those issues even more, because I don't see anything you can really do within this system.
Right, and
it's going to make certain
that.
Things more, to drive you to do any one thing, and not just that thing. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I'm completely with you, and I think that is where the primary conversation for me switches from people were expecting fixes to like the game as a whole in this DLC, and I didn't expect that to come in the DLC, although I think that fixes could come with the season 2 in general, and maybe they'll show some of those things off next week, although, not likely that they haven't, like, I feel like they would have said something about these changes by now, and I feel like, maybe the live team will bring them at some point, and that's what I'm hoping for. Bungie says that they're listening with these things, and I know they've created a system that they're going to have to completely change in order for us to be happy with, like, specific loot from specific places, or just some other reason that we haven't thought of for an in-game. So I'm with you though, Hove. I don't think that I just think that people have these wants and have associated this DLC as the fix, instead of just new content, which is what it is. It's new content. And when I view it in the eyes of that, I'm like, oh, this looks like fun new content, but it's not fixes to the end game,
Right.
And, I mean, they have to slam dunk this at some point though, right? I mean, we said during the summer D2 has to knock it out of the park. Now people, like you're saying, Lego, it's the DLC. Now we're revealing, it's got to be seasons. It's going to be these seasonal. Now it's like all on the live team to fix these things. Like back to kind of our verbiage issue a little bit. I mean, at some point, you got to come head on and be like, this is what we're going to do to change the game. If you keep kind of building momentum to be like, just tune in next time. I think you're seeing people aren't going to keep tuning in, like they're out of next times. So at some point, now it's the live team that's going to bring these out, not the DLC. And now we're relying on the people who are like just giving us like the dawning and events that we did enjoy, but not, huge systemic changes. I mean,
well, the live team brought us like kiosks and stuff like that, which in this game, if they brought kiosks, like that would change the entire, like people are already starting to complain about the vault, and not having enough room for things. Like that would change the vault completely.
They did Rise of Iron from the ground up, right? I mean, that was all live team, correct?
I think so.
My issue isn't so much with the present, like with the way this is going to work in the present and near future. My problem would be in the more distant future. Like right now, I get the whole you have one team building new spaces, building new things, okay, and then you have the live team who's taking what's already built and manipulating that and changing things around and adding things and whatever. And I get that, and I think that as long as they both live up to what we're expecting, I think that'll work fine as far as within this game. But as you get further and further away, unless we don't know anything about building a game from the inside, from being a dev. But from what we've seen from Destiny 1 to Destiny 2, haven't we discussed a few times that we think that was part of the issue? That we had one team working on Destiny 2 and the live team doing different things that then weren't taken into Destiny 2? Does that happen again?
Right. Well, I mean, they have to fix that, right?
I mean, I don't think we can say until we get this expansion and we get Season 2, which will be at the same time, and that's when you'll really be able to flush out a lot of these things, because Season 2 is brought to you by the live team, like, pretty much, right? So...
yeah, I guess.
I mean, that's how I heard it whenever they talked about it at TwitchCon, and from that Bungie stream. And so that's what I'm anxious to look forward to, is finally see all this come out and see where we're at once it's all out in the open. And, maybe we'll get a taste of that next week with John Wisniewski, at least on the Crucible side of things, because everybody's wanting fresh Crucible stuff as well. And so, like, not saying we'll see that right away, but we might see at least changes to the gunplay and stuff like that.
I mean, we definitely, we know we're going to see a sandbox change, right? They said that comes with each season, so that's definitely what he's going to talk about.
Yeah, so I'm excited for that. And I want to set out, too, since we're on the loot topic and talking about specific things, like we talked about, like specific gear from specific things. That's pretty much, I know there's a lot of negative connotations with the weapon forging thing that they've come up with for the Lighthouse. The prophecy verses is what they're calling them. But it pretty much is that. It's like, it's specific loots for specific things that you do in the game. It's basically like 11, or was it, I think it's 11 mini quests they said. I can't remember the exact number.
I think there were 12 like glyphs.
12 glyphs, but one of them is hacked, and so there's like 11 total or something like that.
Hacked?
Yeah, the machine like goes in there, and Deej makes a comment about it on stream, like, yeah, we couldn't have them all or something like that. But yeah, so but it's over. There's, about 11 of them, and these are like basically mini quests. I know they call them forging, but they're like, go and do this specific activity, like if it's either like a strike or so many crucible matches or something like that, or go do so many missions or go loot so many. This is what I'm expecting from all of these, so that it will be like it'd be like getting strike specific loot or like getting crucible specific loot, something like that. This is how I kind of see it. It's like, hey, go do this specific activity and to get this reward. Not saying it's exactly like that, but it's like a quest to go do these things. I like it more than I thought I would, because when everybody was complaining about it, I was like, oh, it's just going to be a quick thing. And I don't know, it seems more like the quest you get to like do the sword or something, like to get the exotic sword in D1.
And or even like, what about like Mida this time and some of those other exotic weapons? Like,
yeah,
I don't think it's like, I get what you're saying. It's kind of like that, you do a specific thing to get a specific thing.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think it's like it in the way that we want it to be like it. Like the reason we want strike specific loot, and that's because you want to have a reason to keep doing it, and this doesn't give you a reason to keep doing it.
I'm not saying it replaces that. I'm just saying it gives you a reason to do something in the game. That's all I'm
just
saying.
Arguing because that's what I do.
But no, I'm with you. I just think that, like, when I saw it pop up on the screen, the things you need to do, I was like, hey, I'm cool with that. That looks fine, It's not a fix to any in-game thing, but it's just a short-term content thing, which is what a DLC is. Whereas we need actual in-game changes, like I said earlier, which this DLC will not bring. So,
yeah, I mean, I think for what it is, it'll be fine. It'll be good. It'll be fun. It's just not something that's going to, like we've said, and we've kind of bounced around this entire, last half hour, however long we've been doing this. It's going to be fun, but it's going to be fun to just do it and then pretty much be done with it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like it doesn't bring any of the longevity that we've been looking for, that we had in D1 that we've been asking. So I just really think it's important, if you're upset with the game now, that's fine. There's things wrong with it. If you are not willing to stick around or even, go play other games and come back later, that's fine. But don't go into this thinking that anything that you're upset about, not anything, but most of the big things you're upset about are going to change. If you are unhappy with the end game and you are unhappy with the replayability and the reasons to play Destiny 2 thus far, please, I don't want to hear you complain that when Curse of Osiris comes out, that it's still the same, because we know that. No one has said it's going to fix any of these. So, it's perspective. We talked about that a little bit last week. We should just call this episode Perspective and Verbiage. But I don't know. That's just one of those things, because I've been reading a lot of things, and some are people being genuine and having valid opinion. Not that anyone's opinion isn't valid, but presenting them in a good way, and then
logical,
people just talking nonsense. And I just really do think it's important to just go into this. This is what we're getting. You've seen most of it. We'll see a little bit next week. It's not going to be a big change in the core game. It's just going to be, it's a DLC. It's more content of the same thing for the time being. Okay.
Yeah, I'm with you. I do want to add on to that, too, just kind of transitioning into, there's two more topics about the DLC that I wanted to talk about in the stream that they shut off. One was the Infinite Forest, which, isn't going to give you reasons to go in and do it, but I think that it's interesting the way that it changes every time, and it's like Lego pieces, basically, that are put together. And I also thought the Infinite Forest...
You had to say Lego.
I did. It's just for me. So I also thought that it was going to be like a place that you go into and stay there, and you like continuously go through it. But it looks like it's like more like a tunnel that you use to get from point A to point B, and in this case, from present to like future Mercury or something like that. But the route in between changes every time. And so that's what it seems like to me. I don't know. We haven't played it yet, but that's just the idea that I get from it. And whenever you're in that gate in the Infinite Forest, it looks like that changes every time. The different enemies that you spawn in change every time. They can be any of the races, which I think we talked about once before too. So it could be Hive or other stuff because, this is just a simulation basically that the Vex have going on. And I just think that that's really interesting. I think it looked really cool, not just the gate, but inside the Infinite Forest, the way everything kind of spawns together and you never know really what you're going to get, but you know how to navigate it once you're in it. It's just different every time. And I don't know, it just looks really interesting, and I'm curious how randomized it will feel when I'm actually in there. If it'll be like, oh, this is just nonsense, I don't even have to think about it, or like, oh, this is interesting, it goes this way now, and it actually feels different every time.
I mean, I think it'll be different for at least the first few weeks. I don't know how long that feeling will stick around, because keep in mind, they were very adamant about the fact that it's not procedurally generated. Everything has been designed, and it's like you said, Lego pieces, and they'll just move around. So, it was done by devs in the last, 3-4 months for the most part.
I mean, I don't know. I don't have any idea.
Well, I think they said they ramped it up when D2 launched.
Okay.
So either way, it's not something that there's going to be 1,000 different things, and every time you go in there, it's going to be completely different.
Yeah.
So I'm just curious to see how many different things could be in how many different orders and pieces. So,
yeah. I think we'll see all the things quickly. I don't know how quickly we'll see all the different variations of them. I imagine that formula is pretty out there.
And I don't think it will be overly complex to the point that someone would get in there and be like, oh, I can't get the other side, I'm done.
I just hope it's not as simple as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever they may be, and then next week it's 1, 3, 5, 2, 4.
Oh, it also doesn't change by week. I think it changes every time you go in.
Well,
too.
I mean, whatever it may be.
Yeah,
it's just not like, hey, there's these 5 things, and we're gonna switch around what order you do them in. Because if that's the case, I gouge my eyes out with rusty spoons.
Yeah, no, I get you. The last thing that I wanted to hit up about that was there's 2 new strikes that they announced that are going to be a part of the story this time rather than just thrown in there. And people were being negative about that, like, oh, it's a part of the story. That means that we're not getting extra content. It's just a part of the story. And Deej even said that during the stream. He was like, he asked the question, like, so does this mean we're getting less story because these strikes are getting put in? And they're like, no, we've just integrated into the process. It's just a part. It just makes sense now, which I really appreciate as a player, because playing these other strikes that we got with D2, you're kind of just thrown into them and you don't, you don't have any idea what's going on. Yeah. So I really like this way of doing it.
I much prefer the D1 version or the D1 mindset of it, that it was like, and even though, I've talked before that they kind of kept the formula the same, I liked that it was like story, 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 strike. Story, 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 strike. It was a culmination of something. Whereas in this, it was like, do all the stories and then, oh, hey, there's these strikes. And you're like, what? Yeah, that was just really not well thought out to me. My only worry, and I don't think it wouldn't be a big thing anyway, it would probably just be more like a funky, weird thing. But he made it sound like they were designed, and then they were like, oh shit, we should add them into the story, right?
I don't know. It was hard to say. They didn't really say one way or the other. They just said that it's like you go in solo as a part of the story. So I don't know. It's hard to say until we play them, I think.
I guess the way I took that part was that, they had the strikes, and then they were like, well, we need to fit them somewhere in these story missions. So I hope it just doesn't seem like chopped up. Like, they're like, oh, this leads into this, and then you just are like on some other. I don't know. Do you know what I mean? I could see that being funky.
Yeah,
I just wanted to say
I could
funky.
see that. No, I know what you mean though. I have.
We need to get someone on the podcast named Mark, so we can call him Marky Mark, and we can all be the funky bunch.
No, we don't need that.
We'll just call it Funky Cast.
Wow.
What is happening?
Ho is chugging way too much of that protein shit or whatever. That's
banana honey almond butter.
Is that alcoholic? Whatever you're drinking?
No, it's not alcohol. I do have. You want me to go get some?
No, I'm with over though. Like, don't mess with the story. That's one of the things you definitely got right in the second in D2. So to kind of go down from that, let's not do that. If the strikes are weirdly integrated. That wouldn't be great. But not being able to select the strike sucks, though, because...
That would take me out of it even more than being separate.
Yeah. Like, I finally got that one strike against that Taken guy on the EDZ after probably 12 strikes. So, not being able to pick the strike or, like, get to experience all of them right away was a little not upsetting, but a little odd.
Congratulations, Triton. You've done 9 more strikes in Destiny 2 than I have.
Really?
Oh my gosh. You haven't done any still to this day, Hove?
3. I did 3.
Were they all Nightfalls?
Okay. No, just one Nightfall.
Oh, just no one Nightfall?
Have you played the Pyramidion yet? Have you played the Pyramidion yet?
What is that?
It's the one on IO. It's this week's Nightfall. It's super easy.
Dude,
what's the one where you fight the... No, I guess that wouldn't be it.
He's Braxian is a teleporting guy at the end. He descended into that big pit.
He's invisible and you're up on those platforms and then there's electric shanks. What's that?
That's the one on Nessus.
Yeah.
That's a long one.
That's the electric invisible guy. That's what I call it. I don't know.
Yeah, that's definitely the name of it.
You do that for the Sturm quest. You do like 75% of it.
Yeah.
I was so happy when I didn't have to come. I was solo whenever I was doing that.
And I
was so happy whenever I completed it.
So, okay, so random story with that strike one, as I was going through the strike playlist to do this. So that strike takes a long time to do. It's time consuming even if you like know what's going on. It's just there's so many stages. There's the one with the plate, you gotta hold them off for while Ghost does something. There's like the beginning, like those, what are they, pulses or whatever. Yes. So there's somebody on the team who just stays by that first area, never moves along, and for some reason we never pushed him forward. I don't understand. And you could see every now and then that he would move like just enough not to get kicked to orbit. So this irks me greatly. So I reported him for inactive because I'm like, we just need someone else in here because this is just taking too long. I want to get through this playlist. So I messaged him about like right before the boss. I'm like, hey man, I know you're not really playing a lot, but if you don't mind dropping just so we can get someone else in here, that would really help in this last fight. Like just something along those lines. It wasn't like, get out of here now.
You had to know that wasn't going to go well.
So it's not that it went poorly. So he doesn't say anything to me. So I'm like, well, that's typical because you're inactive. Why would you say something to me? So a couple hours later, I'm just, on my phone and a message comes across and it's the guy and he's like, sorry, that was my 4-year-old kid. Like, and I immediately feel terrible. Like,
you're a terrible human being.
I didn't send this hateful message. I was like, can you leave? But then the cynic inside of me is like, is this some dude who's just like, yeah, I'm just gonna make one of those comments like this just so you feel garbage? I'm gonna lean more towards that was probably true.
It probably was true.
Because we did wipe at that invisible guy. Just like, I fell off the map. The other guy died. Whatever. And then he's there, and the guy he only could use right thumbstick. So. Like, when we all spawn back together and he's fighting, he never moved. He only could move the right thumbstick to, aim. So, I mean...
Sounds like a 4-year-old to me.
So, probably was. So,
that's just God.
So, with that strike, that was my, that was part of my week.
So, I gotta say
about if you're listening, that doesn't sound very resolute to me.
Hey, it wasn't a me message. It was like, hey, if you could put someone up, get out in case you don't want to play.
Okay,
Shaming 4-year-old children.
I got a story about this strike too, but it was when I was solo, and I've never felt that vaulting was so vital to Destiny 2 than the moment when I fell off the map. Like, I don't remember if I was a Hunter or Titan, and I fell. There's a corner of the map that I was floating over to, and I got caught up in the cables. There's all these weird fallen cables on the side of the map, and it made me stop my jump. And then I slipped off that, but I hit A, and so I kind of did the Titan glide float thing where you're you didn't get momentum, so you're just kind of sitting there stuck. And I kind of went over floated back to the ledge, and I was right on the edge of it. I was like, crap, I'm going to die. And then my character vaulted up, and I was like, oh my gosh. I was in the air for a good 10 seconds in all the cables and wires and stuff, and I was halfway done with it. Come on, don't die, and I just vault up, and I'm fine. I was like, oh my gosh. No way. Vaulting for the win. That's my story.
In PUBG? Vaulting's coming to PUBG.
Yes. Okay, so, you can play other games, and one of those might be PUBG, and that's fine, too. But
No, I'm just saying.
No, I agree with your sentiment earlier about, it's okay. If you're, fed up with anything, or even if you just, need a break for a few days, you can go play another game for a little bit, especially if there's not an event going on. Right now, Iron Banner is going on, and I want to come back and play because I want to get those shaders on PC for my PC Guardian because I really like the way those look, and I know that they're not coming back again, which is something that we've talked about on the cast a lot before, is exclusivity, like for specific items at specific times. I'm a really big fan of that because it makes me want to come back and do them, knowing that I may not get them again. So I don't know. I'm excited that I'm in a place where I can go play something else if I need to. I want a reason to come back and play Destiny all the time for sure, but I just think it's fine to not for a few days and then come back and go grind Iron Banner, you know?
Well, speaking of that, I do want to touch on the fact that Lego has not only started playing PUBG, but he has the PUBG fever. I'll message him and I'll be like, hey, Lego, what are you doing? He'll be like, playing PUBG? Are you coming? I'm like, yeah, I mean, I guess.
I want to clarify, that is not the way these conversations go. They start out with Hove saying, hey, you want to play PUBG? Hey, come play PUBG, that kind of
No, there
thing.
was one where I just said, Lego, what are you doing, in all caps? And you said, you want to play PUBG? And I said, yeah, I guess so.
Maybe one time that happened. but
he's hooked, by the way. And
is
also
there any...
good at it.
Go ahead, Hove.
I was just going to say, you're also, once you learn how to loot, you're probably just as good as the rest of us at shooting and killing things already. So that makes me
feel... my first solo chicken dinner. Felt pretty good about it.
Yeah, that's one less than I have.
So did we have anything else that we want to say about the stream? I don't want to get off topic too much here.
Specifically the stream, no. But about the DLC in general?
Sure.
I'm just curious about story speculation. What you guys think is, because what we know is, Osiris was all these simulations and blah blah blah. His ghost got damaged. They're separated. And then, the Vex, this whole time we've thought they were like invading and doing all this stuff, but as it turns out, they've been just like hanging around the Traveler, waiting for now when he woke up and the light came out. And now they're like starting their plan. And Osiris is trying to figure out, so what are they doing? Like, what is their end game? Do they have an end game? Because Bungie doesn't have an end game. Do the Vex have an end game? Paradox, mind blown. Did Bungie make a game without an end game about an end game?
Oh my gosh. That's amazing. Well, I'm really excited to see the story. Like, I have almost no idea what it is, but a thought just came to me for the first time while you were saying all that, and that was that there's probably going to be a big bad at the end of this story. You got to have a big boss that's like at the end of this, right? Like, and the way that they treated the rest of the actual game, if there's story missions like that have cinematics and stuff thrown throughout it, like, or even a mission that's even similar to the Almighty mission, like, it's going to be pretty fun DLC. They've done a really good job with the story in D2 base, and so if they do even partially that with D2 DLC, I'm going to be pretty happy with it, the story-wise.
Yeah, in that sense, yeah, absolutely. Right, and it sounded like you were going to talk.
I mean, I think I was the one who, after the story mission we first talked about, the D2 story, thought it was actually like pretty bland overall. I mean, I mean, it's just this guy on the run of the litter. Now I'm going to monologue forever, which goes against the whole way I got the power. But it's well crafted. It's put together with the cinematics, and it's easily identifiable. So I don't think that the story is going to be amazing in that way, but as long as it's crafted together, makes sense, or some cinematics like Lego mentioned, then I'm just going to enjoy it. So I don't really have like, I don't think that like their ultimate goal is going to be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe it. It's going to probably just be like, oh well, this will allow us to like bend time more, or whatever the Vex do normally, to a greater degree, would be my guess. And if that's not true, it's probably something that we've seen in some other narrative before. But if it's told well, then I'll be fine with it.
So I have two thoughts that I'm going to try to get them both out before we start talking about one or the other, because I'll forget while we're talking about the other one. But so my thought, I don't know how much you guys follow some of the deeper lore like that Bife's put out and everything, but one of the things that pisses the Vex off is they can control and manipulate time, space, everything around them, blah 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 blah. The only thing they can't manipulate or predict has been the Guardians, and I think Oryx to take it too. There was something about that, but because we're paracausal, they don't know what's going to happen and yada 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 because of the light. The light takes us out of that predictable realm for them. What if it has something to do with the fact that the Traveler woke up, that light went out and touched everything? You assume, right? Because it went out in a big fear from the earth and everything. What if they were able to touch the light, and now they I don't want to say they have the light, they control it, but maybe they understand it now, they know how it works. That's why Osiris is like, oh shit, they're able to figure this stuff out now. What's going on? You know what I mean? Something similar to that. Maybe now they understand the light a little better.
Yeah.
Because they were able
I
to
think
touch
could be something like that. That sounds really interesting. I think you're definitely onto something there, the way that they explained it on the last stream, where it definitely did have something to do with the Traveler and that light, and now is their time to do whatever they're going to do. So that makes sense.
That's why, because now they understand it, or they can predict it. They see how it functions, whatever it may be.
Or at least got to peek into it or something.
Yeah, I always peek into it. My second thought, and this kind of goes with story and you said Big Bad and the raid content thing. So even though, there's other races in this one, the DLC is primarily Vex focused, correct?
Yeah. So
you would think that the Big Bad of this would be some sort of Vex, or some sort of Vex mind, or whatever. Something Vex related. So you would also assume, I'm making a lot of assumptions here, that the final Big Bad of this would come from the new raid content, the raid lair. Also,
I don't think so, because...
So what do you think the end boss is going to be? Just another, strike boss?
Exactly. I feel like it's got to be something that, is, not up to par of the end boss of D2, but something that is, along those lines, not equivalent,
more
but
like
a DLC version.
But I was gonna say, you look back, and that was PoE was this DLC's raid lair, right?
Yeah,
and that whole thing built up to PoE. Golas was the boss. Dark Below built up to Crota's End. Crota was the boss. You got it, so on and so forth. Every expansion.
Yeah. It just seems like they're doing things differently in D2, the way that we've been presented the raid this time around, and the way the raid is on Calus's ship still.
Right, but that's what I was going to get at. Maybe does it... Because if it's just we beat the Vex in the story mission, and then Calus is like, yo, guys, come back up here. That's going to be kind of dumb. If they don't tie together strongly somehow, a well-told reason that we're going back to Calus's ship after this whole Vex thing, I'm going to be very disappointed. Now, if it's I think we mentioned before, maybe the Vex, invaded the ship, or they're breaking in trying to steal something, or, whatever it may be, that's fine. But if it's we just finished this Vex storyline, because to be completely honest, yeah, I know they touched on it between the adventures and stuff in the vanilla story, but we even said, the beginning of that was kind of weird. It was just you killed Gaul, and then you just show up on Calus's ship. Hey, we're here. So if it's the same thing where we just kind of beat this Vex threat, whatever it may be, and then we just decide to take another trip up there because us and Calus are buddies, I don't know, I'll be kind of disappointed in that.
I think
I just want to tie together.
Get ready to be slightly disappointed then. I think I have a feeling that's the way it's going to go down.
Really? You can't figure out a way to tie those together?
I mean, they're just separate things. I think there's different things going on in the universe at the same time, and that's fine. But
why are we going back up there?
Because Calus invited us, and we already have that story.
Oh, because we're just BFFs with Calus. We're just best friends. We just go up there whenever he wants to hang out.
Well, he's got stuff to show us, and maybe they give us I do hope this. I hope they give us a better reason to go up there than we got with base D2, because... Yeah, there wasn't really. It was oh, hey, we found this artifact, and then it's filled up, and then we go up there. We have an invitation all of a sudden.
Oh, hey. Hey, guys, now that the Vex aren't bothering us anymore, yeah, I'm bored. You guys want to, do you want to go? Do you want to go back up to that big ship?
What is that crazy bastard up there doing now? Let's go check him out now that we're done. I'm actually with Hope on this one, because that would be a little weird. This threat, the Vex to me are I don't know, the most interesting threat of the four that we have, I think. I mean, maybe that kind of ties a little bit with the Vault of Glass, but I just feel like the Cabal, there's warrior brutes or whatever, the Hive, Horde, I think they're a little bit more mindless. I know they're not, but I think that way. I think the Vex are kind of cool. So to kind of have that be this huge ominous thing, and then just be hey, did you know this other door up at the Leviathan's open now? Let's go check that out for 45 minutes. I don't Yeah, I think there have to be a reason. I think it'd be cool. Like, what if the Vex kind of like invade that ship with the light bending? Going with Hope's theory here, maybe they figure out how, and you have to kind of like go up there to maybe stop that there for for whatever reason. I mean, I would be down for that.
If Callus is like, yo, like, yeah, I tested you guys. You're like pretty strong, and I'm sitting here drinking my wine. I'm a little tired, and these Vex guys are up here and they're bugging me. You want to come take care of this? And then that's cool. But if literally it's just like, yeah, we beat the Vex, and we're Guardians, so like since there's nothing else to do, like let's go check out that big ship again. Yeah. I'm gonna be like, no, man, I'm not going. I refuse.
Yeah, it's like, you want to shoot some more flowers up there? Let's go do that for a while. Go up there, get those pollen.
I do, however, it made me think of, totally off the topic of that, but you just mentioned, the Vex being so interesting. In all honesty, I think they're all, except for the Cabal, I think they're all really interesting in their own way. I still think the Cabal are just kind of like, I don't know, they're just a big, like, army.
Yeah, that's
Callus could change that. Callus seems to have some weird shit going on. There's theories that he's like met the darkness and all this other stuff. But the Cabal as a race, I think, are kind of lame. But I think everyone else is really cool. Like the Vex, obviously, time travel, predicting all that stuff. I think the Fallen might be. I don't know.
Without going a lot into lore, I wanted to leave that. So I mean, if you've dived into that or listened,
no. But I mean, just the fact that like we know, like the Fallen, they're us from however long ago. The Traveler left them and they're pissed and they've been chasing the Traveler. They not really have anything. They're not really wanting to fight us. They just want the light back. Like they had their own collapse. There's even times. Where's there a mission where like the Fallen Captain like helps you?
Yeah, there's that one adventure where you don't have to kill him, and if you don't shoot him at all, he just leaves, essentially relinquishing that key or the.
Because they don't have a problem with us. They don't want to conquer us. They just want what they think is theirs back. Yeah. And then you get the Hive that you dive into the Hive, the Taken, and Oryx, Savathun, Dark. So I think the Cabal were the only lame ones. They're dumb. They're just big space turtles with a big ship.
And I think if you can make an interesting enough story with them, like with the last, this whole D2 thing, it makes me really excited for the DLC and what story they will actually tell. Especially over the story of like the Dark Below and House of Wolves. I just didn't feel like they were as like cinematic as some of the other stuff that we've gotten, and I'm curious at what level is this DLC going to be at. We don't really have any idea other than this initial cinematic we've gotten.
I'd think House of Wolves. You mean as far as content or story?
Story and content, like together, like story, mission, cinematic together.
I'd put it definitely above the other two. Destiny 1 year one, but I don't think it'll be as big as
Taken King
for sure, and probably not quite as big as Rise of Iron.
Yeah. That's kind of where my hope is at.
I think you got to look at how much they charge.
Yeah,
it's got to be more on par, I think, with the other two. They're the same price, and then
for sure. Next
year it'll be something bigger.
I keep thinking, they've added in these new characters, as far as like Osiris coming. I mean, he's an old lore character, but new characters to us as players, Like, there's a lot of old characters that are kind of missing right now from D1. And I wonder if, like, how big of an, moment we're going to get if, like, the Stranger shows up at the end of this or something like that. That like,
I don't think Stranger's coming.
I don't think so either. I think they're done with it. But if someone that's missing, like, say somebody else, like, there's talks about the Queen actually being a different character now, like reincarnated into, one of the 9 or like crazy stuff like that.
The Emissary of the 9 and all that shit.
Yeah. Like, what if they actually bring some of that into the story? That I think that would be cool to see what, like, or Eris Morn comes back at the end of this DLC. She helps you somehow, and you're like, what? She's back,
I think she's going to come back at the end of AD. Whichever DLC is going to lead into the next Darkness Taken type of thing, I think Eris is going to show up at the end of the previous one.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully they find a way to take all these like story and lore things and weave them into endgame incentive. Because I think, like, I mean, whether or not this makes it, I'm just gonna say, like, even if the story's great, we now know from D2 that your story being great, that's gonna last about 2 weeks before all the other things. And not to go in that direction, but I think that would be really cool. Thing about these things that we're spitballing, like, wouldn't it be cool if the stranger were to come back? So this is something they said, but like she's the one who sends you off into like new planet discoveries because she's been all over the place, and you bring stuff back there that would be like really cool looking tech and armor and weapons because it's so far out. Eris Morn takes you into like the hive type of stuff. That way there's like maybe there's specific loot tied into some lore with a variance in the kind of type of mission you're doing. I think that would be a cool way of having lore plus this end game. Like, you know, that would keep me invested.
Pump the brakes there, Triton.
I'm gonna say that would keep me invested in both the story, and you have all this rich lore that people are constantly talking about. I mean, I've never dived into it, but I think that would be really neat.
Yeah.
I'm not nearly as into to some people, but there's some really cool shit. I do watch a Bife video here.
Yeah, some people that are really into it always have things like, oh man, like you don't even understand, like they do, this is their motivation, and this is where they come from, and there's like such a, almost like a cultural feel to some of these things, like they're very distinct, like to have someone in the story tied to those things and be specific to doing just that activity would be pretty awesome to do.
And
both.
Yeah, and that's what makes me really excited for the story this time around in this DLC, because they've been so much better with the cinematic and story combined in D2 overall, to see what they can do with the DLC, because they've got so much interesting lore to go into. And as Hove said, I kind of agree with him that the Cabal are the least interesting for me story-wise, and really all these other races like the Vex are really interesting to me. So to see what they do with it story-wise, I'm like, I want to know.
I mean, if an army of space turtles invaded like this Earth, real life Earth, they'd be interesting as shit. But like, when you put them in the Destiny universe, it's just not that cool.
Okay, Ho cannot drink that protein milk or whatever the hell he's drinking during the
It's Vex milk.
Like whatever
he's
that
drinking
is.
the Vex
He's
milk.
fine.
Banana, honey, radiolaria. No, but like I'm saying, you know, an army of space turtles, man. If they just came rolling up to Earth, I'd be fucking like pretty interested. Like I'd want to know what was up. I'm serious. Why are you fucking laughing at me?
Because like that's the most random of all the things you said. That's a pretty random one.
Oh
I'm really struggling to think of a more random, just like general comment that you've ever made. Like yeah, this Earth, space turtles would be cool as shit.
So Osiris, would you be? Do you think he's going to turn out to be some sort of? I don't think the big bad, but do you think he's going to end up being a pain in the ass, sort of an antagonist, or do you think he's going to just be helping?
No, he's going to be freaking awesome and end up helping us. Maybe with some, slightly crazy tactics. Not quite like Cade is. Cade's like mischievous tactics, and this guy's going to be like kind of dark tactics, I think.
Do you think Brother Vance is going to fangirl whenever he meets him?
Oh, yeah.
Like, do you think he'll give him his sight back?
Oh my gosh, that would be a little too... I don't know.
Why? He can control time and shit.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe.
If we're spending time on Brother Vance getting his sight back, I'm going to be a little disappointed.
No, I think that would be cool, man. If Osiris rolled up and was like, the things I can do, blah, 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 and just like gave Brother Vance his sight back. Or maybe they've been playing us the whole time and Brother Vance can see, and Osiris is like a fake bad magician. And he's like, take your sight back. And we're like, oh my god, he's amazing. And inside
like
Brother Vance is like, haha, really bitches, I can see the whole time.
I think that Triton... Triton has made a good point here. Like, I think if we're talking about Brother Vance actually not being blind, it might be a sign we need to end the podcast.
Or at least, like, mute Ho for the back.
What? Listen. Anybody who listens to this podcast, I implore you. Is that the right word?
Yeah. Well,
sure.
Look,
I don't know where you're going. But...
Cut that part out and just go to this part. I implore you. If you think that any of the things I have said on this podcast today have been entertaining or partially plausible or even interesting, please make sure to, on some form of social media, let these other two dolts who can't think about Brother Vance please let them know, whether it be on Twitter or an iTunes review. Please just tweet us and just tell me that was interesting. tell them that they are wrong.
And
I'm done.
you cannot be
and
one of the people who normally do that. So, like, we're going to immediately disqualify, like, Wilson, Marcus, Sam. I know you probably think so. I love you guys. We all love you guys. It can't be you guys. It can't be, like, the normal people that would do that. It cannot be the usuals. If you're a random...
I want to hear from someone who listens and we don't know personally. Just tell me that Brother Vance could get his sight back and you would care.
No, I like the idea that Hove had. You can leave an iTunes review and say that you care about Hove.
As long as it's a 5 out of 5.
I got to that point. I was like, oh, this is going to sound like a really big, elaborate spiel just to get people to leave iTunes reviews. And it wasn't. I just want to prove to you guys that I have valuable things to say about Brother Vance.
Well, you know where you can tell us about these things? You can tell us at REZOcast on Twitter, because this has been episode 61 of REZOcast, and we really appreciate y'all coming out. This has been Lego. You can find me at LegoLeFlesh on... I said it again. LegoLeFlesh. You can find me at LegoLeFlash, at LegoLeFlash on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube. Hove, where can they find you?
You can find me hanging out with Brother Vance and an army of space turtles.
He's drinking that whatever the frick is drinking.
Protein shakes.
All right, guys, come on. This is a serious podcast. You can find me on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, allho76, HOV76. I'm going to make a video. I'm going to make a YouTube video for all the haters.
About Brother Vance being blind, being fake blind.
Yeah, and then someone will see it and send it to Bife, and he'll be like, dude, you just made that all up. I'm like, I know.
Okay, so when that video drops in 2019, please make sure to forward that along, given Hove's posting schedule. But you can find me at all the same places. Triton, please, all one word. Please be in PLZ.
And you can also find REZOcast. Well, I already said you can find REZOcast at REZOcast on Twitter, but you can also find Team Resolute at Team Resolute and TeamResolute.com if you'd like to know more. But yeah, like Hope said, feel free to leave a ridiculous iTunes review. I would greatly appreciate that. I would greatly appreciate being able to read it on this podcast and telling Hove all his ideas are just insane.
Oh, we're starting a battle now.
But yeah, this is it for REZOcast episode 61. Thanks for hanging out. Until next time, guys. GG.
GG's.
Wait, for real?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I thought he was going to say impossible because he had so much things.
Yeah, he made it sound like he was so busy.
Yeah. Hey everyone, this is... Dang it, now I can't do it right because we're not...
Hey, this is Wendler and you're watching REZOcast.
You have to excuse Hove. He had a colonoscopy today. They used the lubricant out of the toothpaste. He's all hopped up on meds. GG's.
I kicked Triton off the podcast today because he wouldn't go to the movies with me or something.
Logical.
Elaborate way to tell you to leave an iTunes review, and it wasn't. I really want people to go on there and tell you guys you're fucking wrong, and Brother Vance can see perfectly fine.
You should. I think that you should have just gone with it and made it that cheesy.
It seemed so bad.
No, it's so good that it was obviously bad, and that's what made it funny.
What do you mean it was obvious? You're obviously bad. Are you still recording?